peeps. I'm Luma. I'm the
Oh,
creator of the Webcomic Library here. We are here for the last panel for the first day of the Webcomic Library Con. So I have Mia and Sarah here with Dorkastock. We're going to be showing you a little bit of how to figure draw and a little bit of what goes into that. So let me pass this on to you, Mia.
all right. Hi, everybody. Some of you may know me as the creator of the Webcomic Tarot Tournament, which, yes, is part of the Webcomic Library. One of many, many, many comics not hosted, cataloged. Just for a little background information, I went to Mass Art. I did a lot of figure drawing there, so I've got plenty of experience drawing both live figure drawing and online. Um, I'm going to be using Sarah's awesome sketch app website. You can see on my desktop right here. I've got it pulled up right here. Sarah, would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Sarah Ford. I run a Dorkastock. Been doing it for 14 years. Yay. And the web app is a new thing that we did this year. I used to have a sketch app for online web stuff, and took a bunch of money that people gave me on Patreon. Thank you, patrons. And I sunk it into a rebuild of the sketch app. So we rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up, and we just redid everything and made it better and faster and more useful. We made it a little fancier, and I'm so happy with it. It's just the greatest little thing.
That's so cool. For those of you watching at home, this is adorkastock.com/sketch. And what you can do is set a timer for all of these different poses. You can randomize it. You can also filter it through different tags if you want, for example, dramatic, if you want gun pictures, if you want group shots, if you want shots with foreshortening, wings, even lots of different cool tags and stuff. I have also set some favorites of mine that I'm going to be kind of oscillating between. So as figure drawing classes usually go, I'm going to start out with some really quick fire minute-long poses. I'm going to be drawing some super quick gesture sketches as kind of a warm-up, trying to copy the essence of the pose first. And then I'll move on to a couple 5-minute poses, spend a little bit longer with each one, and then at the end I will do a 30-minute pose. You are welcome to follow along with me as well. I have the a reference here pulled up on the desktop. You can also watch me follow along on my screen. I'm going to be drawing on my iPad here. So, without further ado, there we go.
We had a little feedback in the chat saying that we're kind of quiet. I don't know if we can
Okay,
adjust that.
how's this? Is my mic is a tad bit closer
Yeah, I just
to
adjusted mine too to see if that will help.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Definitely keep us updated with how that's going. So let's do one. What'll be a good starting one? This is a great starting one. So, what I'm going to start out with actually is the ground that she's standing on right here, and just get very, very super sketchy. I'm not aiming for detail at this point. I'm just kind of getting something down right
Oh,
here.
apparently I'm loud enough, but you guys aren't loud enough.
Okay. Is there any way I can?
I'm not sure how that could be adjusted.
I might have to adjust my own
Okay.
internal volume real quick. Da-da-da-da-da.
You want me to chat a little
How's
about?
this? How's this?
Oh,
Is that
you
better?
sound a little louder to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's stick with that for now. And yes, why don't you chat a little bit about your work with the Dorkstock?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that most of the people in the chat are familiar with what I do. But I started out making pose references for myself for my own art, and I was drawing Sailor Moon characters. So I was just taking lots of pictures of myself jumping around in magical girl poses. And I drew a few images from them, and my friends were like, "Wow, these are really well done. The anatomy looks great. Like, did you use a reference?" And I was like, "Oh, I took a photo of myself in my underwear." And they were like, "This is brilliant. You should do more of this." And then somebody tipped me off that DeviantArt had a section for reference photos. So I just started posting them there, and it's funny because my entire gallery got scrapped because
Wait, really?
when I first started, because the quality wasn't very good. I had a really terrible point and shoot camera, and this just wasn't very good quality. So like when people were so used to using photos for photo manipulation and not for reference. And so they looked at these like grainy, terrible pictures of me, and they were like, "These are useless." Into the
Gotcha. Oh,
trash
that's so
bin.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then I was like, I'm sorry, but people are using these. Could you not do that?"
That's so funny.
So
Yeah,
it was
I mean,
I was like, "I'm not gonna do this anymore." I quit, and then I got over it, and then I was like, "No, I'm still gonna do it. I'm just gonna have to try to be better at it."
yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to if you're just doing, for example, like what I'm doing now, just a general gesture, you don't need high quality detail. You don't need like 1080p, need to see every pore on every follicle.
Right.
You don't need that. Like if especially if you're going to be tracing over it or
You guys are gonna see me yelling at my kid.
changing the details.
Not coming. She's
Yeah,
sneaking in.
so funny.
But yeah, it doesn't need to be that clear unless you're, trying to get an individual finger reference or something. Some of them might be kind of blurry for that, but
Yeah.
if people are just drawing the shapes, I mean, I post preview images of packs and people work from those. So,
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
I call them resource trash pandas. Those are
yeah.
my
Pandas.
artists. They'll
That's
take
great.
anything.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm gonna leave this one be. This is just a very, very rudimentary sketch here. You can see how I started super loose and then started refining a little bit from there. I've just done some basic guidelines in here. What I like to do is this curvy one, which shows where the eyes are going to go, as well as extending, wrapping all the way around the side of the head to show
Hmm.
where the ear is going to go as well. And then this line right here, which may or may not be straight, is going to show the symmetry of the face. And you can place your nose and mouth along that. I'll also do a line for the cheekbone right here. Right here, and then I'll also draw in the hairline right here. Generally doesn't need to be much more detailed than that, at least in the first step, because then what you can do is take a very light eraser and then go over it and add your details on top of that. So
Mm.
let me now do a second pose. It's another warm up. This one's so funny. I love how you have it started out just as you doing your own thing for your own purposes and now has grown into like you've hired so many more models, doing so many more different types of poses. It's so cool to see how it's grown over the years. Even just starting out, like I remember actually back when it was Senshi stock, uh, like from middle and high school when I was way younger and I knew about what you were doing and all the cool stuff that you've done, and it's so cool to see that you are still around and still, just growing and growing, expanding what you have been doing all these years. It's very awesome.
Yeah, originally it was really just how many of my friends can I talk into coming over and doing this with me? So a lot of the early models are like friends from college,
Gotcha.
friends from high school, kind of anyone that I could talk into it. My pitch was like, "Hey, do you want to come over my house and like just wear your underwear and I'll take some pictures of you and then artists can draw pictures from them." And my friends are all like a little, I've got a lot of strange friends and they were all like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'll
I
do
think
that." And
everyone should
like
have strange friends.
yeah, and I talked a lot of them into it for free, but it is nice now. that I've got Patreon set up, it's been a real big help with being able to like diversify the people that
Yeah.
I can have, because when I'm only working from my network, I'm limited to just the people I know. Whereas if I can hire professional models, now I can get like the dancers that I just had in my last shoot,
Yeah.
which I've
Those
only
are
sort
so
of
cool.
teased at, but they are so incredible. And I'm like, you guys are like liquid people. How do you do that?
Very cool.
So I'm really excited about that. And
That's
and
awesome.
that
I can be
that's my
busy.
thing right now, is just trying to find, more models that I don't people that take up like gaps in my experience, knowledge, and
Yeah,
also
gotcha.
different physical
Whatever.
representations. Yeah,
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 whatever niches you can't cover yourself.
like getting Rowena to come and model for me was great, because she was the first fat model that I had. And then since then I've been able to find, more people that are willing to model. She might not have been, the first, but she was the first that I did a full shoot that was just
I
her, I
see.
think. Yeah.
Cool.
Um, but man, it's like so fun. It's so fun to see what people do.
Yeah, and it's cool following you on Twitter at a Darkest Doc, seeing you retweet like what their other artists have done using your library of stock images and poses, and seeing the breadth of all the different things that can be turned into.
I know people get really
Very
creative.
cool.
I love the gesture in this one, the way he's leaning.
Yeah.
You're
So
really nailing that.
yeah, something that helps a lot, especially as a first pass, is to get the spine in there. Spine and rib cage can help a lot. Another thing I did with this one was trying to get. You can see one kneecap is higher than the other to show the lean. This one is
Oh
there.
yeah, it is,
It's
because
being
the
pushed
leg is bent.
back.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, it's bent backwards. There's a lot of foreshortening there. So that curve, just that gesture, obviously that's not an actual part of the body, but drawing that can uh
Mhm.
help that. So in terms of now at this point, I could start adjusting, figuring out where the ear is, and also, okay, this hand actually does go a little bit further away from the body. This elbow, um, kind of is a little bit more in front of the body. This front of the body, the hips, the pelvis is going to be rotated a little bit more. You
And
can
then you
start
can dig into it.
adjusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, what I'll do, I'll actually show you that with a 5-minute one. Let me do maybe one or two more of these little quick ones. This is a good one. Here's another one with a lot of motion. So again, I'm starting out with the ground here. And this one, the line of action, the motion is very vertical. The head and the shoulders kind of get all squished up here, and the arms are what break that.
And it's interesting because most of my figure drawing training was very classical, like in a studio with a model live. Um,
Yeah.
so, the difference between that and working from photos, like, I feel like anybody that's classically trained is going to say, well, you're missing a lot of information when you don't have the three-dimensional thing in front of you. Like, right, your work, you're missing the the there's like a skill set to taking something that's three-dimensional in front of you and transferring it to a page,
Absolutely.
right? And that's
Yeah.
it's a different skill than
Yeah.
transferring 2D to 2D. So like I never want people to feel like they're working from photo references and that's not good enough, because we get what we get. Like we do what we can.
Yeah, I
um,
feel like there's value in both.
right.
At my day job, I work as an art teacher, and we actually don't have live models at our studio at this point. So we rely on photo references a lot, and there's a lot of great value to be had in that as well. Because with a photo reference, what you can do is really zoom in and zoom out, look very closely at the details, take more time to examine that. how it looks from that one angle specifically, which is also very important to do. Like, it's important to know how things look in 3 dimensions. Absolutely. Very important skill, especially if you want to draw realistic things. However, it's important to know how things look in 2 dimensions as well, because that's how you're recreating it in 2 dimensions,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, well, I can't work from references because like I just copy a reference and then that's all I can do. And I think part of that disconnect might be because when we are working from 2D references, we're losing a little bit of that three-dimensional understanding. So it takes like a little bit more effort and maybe a little bit more time to kind of like get those foundational skills down if you're not,
Yeah,
in a,
that's
but I
true.
just like the reason I started doing this is because I didn't have access to models anymore. Like I had graduated from college and I was like, I guess I will be my own model.
Yeah, that's important.
which which leads me to something that I wanted to talk to people about because like I do get messages from people that are like, how can I start doing this, or like I want to do this too, like how, or even if I want to take pictures for my own art, like not necessarily that they want to post it or share it or like use it,
Mhm.
publicly, but they just want to do their own. And
Yeah.
I just got to say, like, I'm so envious of cell phone technology now. Like I
Right.
literally didn't have a smartphone when I started doing this. Um, so the fact that you can get a little, clippy tripod thing that attaches to something, you really only need your camera to be at about, unless you're going for something with perspective, you want your camera about belly button height and about 8 to 10 feet away from you. And
Mm.
you can take all your own references.
Yeah, that is absolutely something that I did, not to a huge extent because I was also kind of lazy. But I definitely did for some project use my own self as a reference, turning to my friends tabling next to me in the studio being like, "Hey, can you take a picture of me in this pose real quick?"
Or hold this broomstick for a minute like you're about to smash it
Exactly.
over my head.
Yeah, it's helpful to have a definitely helpful to have somebody there with you
hmm
doing that. Harder to do it by yourself, but still possible.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit harder, but I mean, at this point, it's a bit ironic because I don't illustrate anymore, and I've got a whole studio set up in my house for taking post reference photos.
Yeah.
I'm like, ah, well, at least I'm doing it for somebody else that's going to get a good use out of it. I
I
think you've
mean,
got too many fingers there.
well, hey, when life gives you lemons.
Oh no, I see what's happening. I was like getting lost in your doodle here.
Oh. Yeah,
I
so
love the gesture of the hand on the right is really nice.
yeah, so I wanted to talk about that real quick. What I've done with the hands here, if you're struggling with a pose or something like that, I would actually recommend filling in the whole thing like a silhouette here, because that can help you really break it down into the absolute most simple shapes possible before you before you start getting detail in it.
Mm-hmm. And this is a tough one for gesture too because it's such a straight up and down pose.
So
But
stiff, right?
yeah, yeah.
The other one that we just had a lot of movement, easily exaggerated. This
hmm
one, it is harder to get that stiffness
hmm
to the pose.
But that's what the pose is because it's like a shock. It's like a moment of shock and surprise.
Yeah, that kind
Yeah.
of tenseness of the muscles. For sure. And so you'll see how I've started with the body and I'm not adding in face details until the very end, right here. That was something that I learned in art school that I will pass along to you. Do the face at the end.
And then do it again and then do it again and
And
then do
then
it
do it
again.
again and then do it again. Yeah, exactly. All right. So I think at this point I will start doing slightly longer poses. I'm not doing the timer here uh rigidly.
Just doing what feels good.
I'm just vibing. I'm hashtag
Yeah.
vibing.
There we go.
Uh, this is a fun one. I love these
Oh
underwater
yeah. The
shoot.
underwater stuff's been really fun.
Yeah.
Blue
Um,
Blue has done a lot of work. She's the photographer that I use for those, Blue Amrich, and she usually photographs dogs. So if you guys want to look up her Instagram, I think is Dogs on Adventure. Let me make sure that that's right, so I'm not saying the wrong thing. But yeah, Dogs on Adventure on Instagram. So her stuff's so much fun. It's just cute, adorable puppies. But she lets me borrow her for the underwater stuff and some of the other professional stuff because she's just a really good photographer. I always tell people I am not good at actually photography. Like photography is not a skill that I have. I had Blue come and set up my studio, and I just don't touch anything.
Yeah, I am right with you there. I am not a photographer at all. Like when I think of like I'd rather just draw it myself rather than take a picture of it. But it's
hmm
a very important skill that exists. I am very grateful for professional photographers and the work that they do.
Yeah, she did a lot of work for underwater. Like that shoot that you're working from now, that photo, I think was the first time that we kind of got the lighting and all the tech right so that it didn't just look like all blue. Like a lot of our early attempts at underwater photography, it was just all like blued out. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just blue light and
Gotcha.
the skin
Gotcha.
tone looked blue. Everything was blue. It was abu di abu di, I'm blue, like the whole thing.
The blue
Um
Corvette.
So, she worked hard on the tech to get to the point
Awesome.
where she was, making these high quality underwater, references. And now, I mean, I'm so excited. Kyle's saying, I'm so jealous you get to do underwater stuff. I can't wait until the next time we get a group shoot together because we attempted underwater photography the last time we had a group shoot and we just really weren't prepared for the technical aspects of it. But now we are so prepared.
Cool. That's exciting. So one thing that I kind of want to narrate as I'm working on this particular pose, this was kind of something that we mentioned in passing as we were planning out this panel. Um, Something to keep in mind is the relationship between the straights and the curves when you're
Mhm,
drawing. One thing that I've noticed, especially like you can see with the leotard and right here, right there on the hips, you can see one of these lines as it kind of represents that hip joint of the upper thigh.
mhm,
This one is curved and this one is straight because of the angle that it's at.
mhm.
Notice that and accentuate it. Really lean into that as you're cartooning, especially if you're doing this with the intent that it's going into a comic, which I'm sure that a lot of the audience is. Accentuate that. You don't have to get the 100% accurate detail. The gesture of the motion is more important than anything else
Yeah, and
at this
learning how
point.
to push those, like, push those movements and make them, a little bit more dramatic than they are is a great way of utilizing reference.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of people who, will have trouble because they're like, they can't find the correct reference for what they need. And a lot of times, the solution to that is really just looking at a lot of things that are close and just
Yeah, and
doing
kinda
Doing a
compositing
lot
them
of
together in your
studies.
mind.
Yeah. If you do a lot of
Yep,
studies of things that are similar to what you want, you'll start to get a feeling, for how it yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, I'm one of those people who can't visualize in their heads. That's me. So like
Gotcha.
I can't picture something in my head. I have to work it out on the paper. So like if I have an idea or a concept of a pose that I want, I have to figure it out on the paper to see it.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. That's kind of
yeah.
like why I you can see me pressing really, really light with my fancy Apple Pencil on my iPad, just trying to get something on the paper. I tell my students that I teach at work all the time, it's easier to edit something and change something that's already there than it is to create something from scratch. So feel free to just kind of scribble on your
Yeah, just
paper.
feel it
Put
out.
down
Yeah.
something, no matter how wrong it is. The because once something's there, you can use your eyes to compare and contrast, figure out, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to add? Now that I've got this whole neck section, I'm noticing, oh, okay, there's a shoulder sticking out here that I need to get. Just that shoulder. And that kind of leads me to, that's a great example of how 2D and 3D can be different. Because
Mhm.
in 3 dimensions, you might see a little bit more of the shoulder, but going from the photograph, you can see there's only that tiny little bit. And knowing how that looks from that particular angle is so valuable.
Yeah, and then it connects, visually, mentally, it'll connect that hand that otherwise is just sort of sticking out from somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. You can't
you
see
know,
that the rest of that elbow that goes
right.
behind there at all.
So that, without that shoulder there, that hand sticking out is gonna look really like,
It's gonna
where
look like
did that come
it's
from?
gonna look like a
Yeah.
chest burster. Yeah, that's absolutely so valid. And like if the shoulder wasn't there in the photo, honestly, I would probably add it anyway.
Yeah, otherwise it might just look confusing, like you're missing.
You can
Yeah,
you can
sometimes
take
references really can mess with your understanding
yeah,
of
sometimes
anatomy.
sometimes real life is worse than cartoons. I just
I
gotta say.
know.
Sometimes real life is worse than cartoons. Sometimes you gotta change it based on what looks good.
Yep. Sometimes you just gotta go with what feels right and not necessarily what you're seeing because
Yeah.
especially with foreshortening and perspective stuff can get real wild. I hope you've picked
Oh
out something
God,
that's got,
yeah.
got a wonky,
Oh
really
yeah,
high or low perspective.
I definitely picked out some good foreshortening ones to go in here. And here's a good example of how I could change the reference. I'm gonna rotate the head a little bit so that
There you
instead
go.
of a 3/4 angle, it's a profile view. Right? We see the nose and maybe there's an open mouth drowning.
Blah, blah, blah. Poor drowning Sarah.
Yeah,
Fortunately, no
sorry,
one's no
sorry,
one's drowned in our photo shoots yet. Yeah,
I'm killing a fictional version of you.
that's okay. Kyle is here and he knows the rules. It's pictures first before first aid. So if anything bad happens, if anyone gets injured, just make sure you get some photos of it and then help
Yes.
them.
So you
That's the
can
rule.
the more that you draw from reference, the more that you'll be able to draw from imagination. I tell my students that all the time, because a lot of them are like, I don't want to use a reference. I don't wanna. I want to do it from my imagination. I already know what I want it to look. Well, that's what practice is for. It's
Yeah,
good.
and even as someone that can't visualize in her head, I can tell you 100% that working from references made my drawing better.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%.
And since I haven't drawn in 2 or 3 years now, 2 years maybe, I can tell you it has significantly declined. So, when and if I get back to drawing, I'm going to be rusty.
And here's why I chose to do this on the iPad because I can click and drag parts of it and
Wiggle
rotate
it
it
around.
as needed. Yes, very exciting. Here's the silhouette of the hand and the leg. I love this foot on the knee. That is so
Mhm.
good. How the ball of the foot kind of curves around the kneecap. Super cool. What a great
Yeah,
pose.
sometimes it just like the underwater stuff is by far the hardest to make look good.
Oh, for sure.
Because you've got about 20 to 30 seconds underwater. Like I can actually stay underwater for a really long time if I'm not moving. But when I'm trying to pose and I'm actively, using my muscles, I'm burning all that oxygen. It's about 20 or 30 seconds that you get to try to and you go under with like an idea of what you want to do kind of, and then like you get underwater and you try moving certain ways and then you find like there's strange resistance you weren't expecting
Yeah.
or I do it now with earplugs and nose plugs because
Uh,
it allows me a freedom of movement where I'm not just going to get inundated literally.
all right, let me try to find something with some good foreshortening.
Yeah, nice
Let me
challenge
see,
pose.
maybe one of the other models. Oh no, this is a good one of you
Ah, yes.
right here.
That was
Good
the shoot with
foreshortening here.
Jade.
Can you zoom in
That
on
was the
this?
original
No, I
shoot with
cannot.
Jade.
Oh, nice, nice. All right, I can't really zoom in on that, but you know what? That's just as well because having it zoomed out will help me be able to see the meat
The
of
big
the
shapes.
pose and the silhouette. So this is kind of all jumbled together here in the middle.
I don't think my neck
One,
has ever been as
two.
sore as my neck was after that shoot.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering based off of what you were just saying,
We
because I
did
can
so
only
much
imagine.
falling. Yeah. There was so much falling and jumping. We had like a pile of mattresses set up and we were jumping off scaffolding. It
I
was
can only
like
imagine.
it was hardcore.
Yeah. So what if you had to say, what do you think was the most difficult shoot that you've ever done?
The underwater stuff's the hardest physically.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. It's just it's up under yeah, it's up, take a breath, check with blue, make sure we're ready, go back down, hit some poses, come up, take a breath. I mean we take breaks every once in a while, but I'm pretty eager to like get things done. So, it's just by the end of maybe an hour and a half of that. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
so tired, so exhausted.
No
Um,
kidding.
it's yeah, it's definitely the most physically demanding of what I do. That shoot with Jade was definitely the probably the one where I was the most like sore after. Um, I try not to do things that are obviously I try not to
Sword.
do things that are going to
Sword.
hurt me.
You were pretty sword.
A sword. I was sword. Um, but the next day I was kind of like we were at breakfast and I was doing this where I was like turning my whole body to talk to people instead of rotating my neck.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, there was maybe a little whiplash after that one. But I don't know. I don't think we had any we had a couple people fall down in the group shoot. Like we had a couple of flops here and there,
Trying
but
to hold your balance.
no one was seriously injured.
That's good. That's good.
I've fallen on my butt a couple of times in the studio by myself. There's no one there to care.
So here's another good drawing tip. As you can see, I'm working on this gap in between the two legs. Yet again, the kneecaps are at completely different heights. Because this
And
one,
angles, yeah.
yep, completely different heights, completely different angles. This thigh is super foreshortened, and this one is jutting out to the side. Y- so what's gonna help me get the exact positioning of this leg, because there's a lot of intricacies of it that you don't notice until it's too late and you've already drawn it a different way. One thing that really helps is paying attention to the negative space right here. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this, if you can see on the screen, this little triangular shape in between
Mhm.
the knees, the calves, the thighs, and that little bit of the ankle
Because there
down
is
there.
just as much information in that shape as there is in the form.
Exactly. And a lot of times what you can do, and you can do this in traditional media. I did this with charcoal a lot in my real life figure drawing class in art school. Start out by just drawing it here and then use your eraser to carve around the edge. I do that technique when I do line art a lot as
Mm,
well.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Curving around, working negatively. Because you can see, oh, okay, I had the knee a little bit too high. It actually ends closer to down here. And that will show me, okay, so now I need to have the top of the kneecap right here, the bottom of it's down here, and then that calf muscle doesn't start until right here. So just looking at the negative space can help a lot. This same here, the gap between the hip right here, the
Hmm.
waist and the elbow. I had messed that up the first time. I've got to move this hand. So now I'm kind of drawing with my eraser kind of
Hmm.
around right here.
And I really like the way that you're working, through the figure. You're working with planes, you're working with, cross contour, you're
Yeah,
moving through the figure, feeling it out as you're going. I think a lot of people get stuck on that outline.
that's
And I
so
think,
true.
they're doing themselves a disservice by not looking at all the other information that could be,
Yeah.
very telling about the structure of
That's
the
such a
pose.
great point. And working kind of, I like to describe it as working inside out, trying
Mhm.
to construct like the skeleton and the muscles of the figure before worrying about how I was talking about the negative space and the contour lines and all that. Trying to work inside out is also going to help you draw from imagination a lot
Yep.
because
Yep.
you will be able to, like, there are there are many artists who have like the Loomis method, etc. Bern Hogarth, who have kind of these methods of how to draw the figure, how to construct the figure from imagination, who have studied from life so much. Because they've done that, what they're doing is constructing the figure inside out. So they are able to do that much more effectively from imagination that way.
Yeah, and with practice, you get to the point where you can really define a pose with very few marks. And if you need to be like thumbnailing or you need to be doing, quick work so that you can, go back later and be able to like finish up pages, especially for comic artists,
Yeah.
being able to move through a quick swath so that you can go back later and look at the sketch and understand what the heck you were drawing.
Absolutely. And
Like,
sometimes that's a great point, talking from a comic creator's perspective, and what it's like working from references that aren't quite what you need. Um, a lot of times I'll thumbnail something a certain way, and then I'll go back and I'll try to draw it, and it doesn't quite turn out the way that I wanted in my thumbnail, and I have to completely adjust based on my reference for my pose or reference for the background or whatever, completely adjust my thumbnail, and therefore that changes what the page as a whole looks like, and I have to go back from scratch and kind of work around the reference instead of trying to slot in the reference
mm.
to fit my needs. It's kind of a give and take.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to decide what's more important to you because there might be a panel where, the pose that you had the idea for and it's not quite working out, but maybe it's not as essential as getting it done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, you got to balance all that stuff when you're depending on your project and your deadlines and things. Like some people are doing it for funsies and some people are doing it because they have to, and some people are on contracts, and there's all kinds of things to consider. Um, I want artists to be forgiving of themselves for when they need to take shortcuts and
For
you know
sure.
do what they
I
got to do to get it done.
it's nice to have this library of poses from somebody who understands more of that aspect of it.
Mm. Yeah, having come from an illustrative background, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also just from the interest of like, okay, I know a lot of people want to draw, for example, Sailor Moon, right?
Mhm.
Or sword poses or wings or stuff like that. That's not something that you can find on, for example, Line of Action is another website very similar to the Sketch app that I've used
Mhm.
that has a lot of good pose references, but the types of poses that they have are maybe not quite so in line with what I need for comics and fantasy stuff like that. So it's definitely very awesome to have a reference that is more kind of tailored to that.
Yeah, keeping in mind that audience of people that need like dynamic action stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of like when I'm picking out what's going to go on DeviantArt or Patreon, a lot of it is like trying to balance like making sure I'm include different types of models, making sure some of them are action poses, but some of them are like life day-to-day poses cuz most of the time people are like, "Can you do one where a guy's like putting his socks on?" And it's cuz they want to illustrate like this one panel.
Yeah.
And so it's like having those like niche things.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people joke, like they'll say, "Oh, well, if you don't, if you need a reference, a Dorcas stock probably has it." I mean, at this point, I feel like probably, but people are constantly surprising me with their suggestions and ideas, like stuff I had never even thought of, and I'm like, "That is a great idea."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm always, people are always saying like, "Oh, can I give you some ideas of some stuff you don't have?" And I'm like, "By all means, if I have a giant list, I will slap it on there."
Yeah.
Kyle, who's in the chat, Kyle's in the chat right now. He does null entity stock, and he built a whole freaking boat out of cardboard.
Whoa, that's so
And,
cool.
and he did a shoot where he's been using it for a bunch of different things, and I forget what it's called. He can type and say what its name is, but he built a whole boat. We were gonna do a little secret project that we didn't quite get around to, so maybe the boat will show up next year.
Cool. That was
It was
awesome.
such a beautiful, but you gotta. It's like if you're an artist and you need a picture of a character holding a certain prop, you can get your crafty on.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. One thing that I've done, because I have enough figure drawing experience that I feel more confident drawing gestures and joints and stuff like that and poses from imagination, at
Hmm.
least somewhat. But environments is where my skills are kind of lacking. So what's helped me is there's a lot of video games that have really awesome like building tools. I used to be do most of this in The Sims.
Hmm.
Make houses in The Sims, place the furniture exactly where I needed to.
Oh, that's
Um,
so handy.
yeah, Valheim has been my most recent favorite. It's got a building system very similar to Fortnite, where you can, place walls and etc. wherever you want it. And I have been working on. I've posted a few shots on my Tarot Tournament Discord. I have been constructing the whole entire setting of my webcomic in that game. And it's been so helpful to use for exactly the right angles that I need. I can adjust the camera, I can adjust the lighting. It's the power of reference really changes a lot.
Yeah, it really can make a pretty big difference. And having, I always say like, oh, I'm so jealous because of people and their smartphones now, because I didn't, when I was just in college, I didn't have that. And
Mhm.
and it's just like same thing. Like 3D modeling was like a thing you couldn't just do, right? You couldn't just like but now it's so accessible. There's so many programs and so many things that you can get to. So artists
Like
should be
they
using
always
all
say in
that stuff.
Pokemon, technology is incredible.
It's
Science is
incredible, and
amazing.
and people should be I really like my biggest thing is that people should be using whatever they can to make the art that they wanna make.
Yes,
Like, use
absolutely.
all the tools available.
Oh, here we go. Okay, iPad's coming in handy. I'm scooting this arm over because now I've noticed how this arm overlaps with the torso a little bit more.
I just
That
wanted to give you a heads
shadow.
up that we're at 42 minutes, I think.
42 minutes. Okay, yeah, so we're
Don't know when we're wrapping up, but I didn't want us to suddenly have to stop.
yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, so scooting that arm over has put the hands closer together, which really helps give more of that line of action along the
Yeah.
sword here. Oh god, my computer just tried to go to sleep. No
Wake up,
thanks.
computer.
Uh,
You still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, good.
So, I am going to, um, now that I'm happy with this very basic sketch right here. Now, what I'm going to do is go on another layer and trace over it. I'm going to lower the opacity of this. Go on another layer, maybe change my color a little bit, a little darker, maybe a little
Can't get over
bluer.
how cool that looks.
Yes, and I am going to, let's see.
Like that pose reference, the picture, it's like when I look at that reference, I'm like, this is okay. But when I look at your drawing of that reference, I'm like, this is cool. Like,
So you can adjust like little things of it. I'm gonna buff you up real quick because
yep,
I'm gonna
yep,
turn
make me a big
this
strong
into
lady.
everybody's
Someday, let me tell you,
favorite
I'm
art.
going for the arms someday.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yes,
That's my goal. My next goal is to get big buff lady arms. I'm
that is
late,
an admirable goal.
but I'm lazy, so it's gonna be a long time. Oh,
So
I
I'm
love
going
this.
to kind of widen the proportions a little bit
Mhm.
to now make this more accurate for the specific character that I would want to draw. Ace of Swords here. Because, I mean, who
Really cool.
else would be holding a sword?
Who else, indeed.
Who
Did
else?
I tell you that I read your whole webcomic?
Oh, you told me that you were reading through it. It's awesome.
Yep. I binged the whole thing.
Excellent, excellent. I gotta
Uh,
ask. I have to ask this of everybody. Who's your favorite?
I mean, probably the Fool right now because I'm kind of a sucker for the main character. Um, I don't know.
Understandable.
I'm interested to see if Ponytail Girl comes back. I'm
Oh,
assuming we're
she
not
will.
done
Oh, ho,
with her,
ho.
so
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I think there will be a lot to look forward to in the next chapter.
Yay!
Yes. Oh, yes. Quite a lot to look
So
forward.
exciting.
Yeah, I
I'm like
am.
shenanigans. I'm also when I read webcomics, I don't really try to figure out what's going on. I'm not like a figurer outer when I read
Yeah.
stories. I'm like along for the rider. That's me.
You know what? I am as much as I love theories, I'm kind of the same way. Like like when my friends and I watch shows together, I'm like, you know what? I'm just excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's stuff like I'll read some fan theories about things and I might have a few thoughts about it, but I really just kind of enjoy kind of going along because I mean, like I'm either going to be wrong or I'm going to be right, and I just don't feel like putting the effort into thinking about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Love how this is coming out.
Yeah. So when it comes to what I'm trying to do right now is kind of exaggerate the motion of the pose, how you're kind of
Mhm.
jumping up and then going down. It's got kind of a like a curve
Mhm.
and then back down. I'm going to try my best to have the cape kind of echo that motion so it
Oh,
goes
like a
up a
swoop.
little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then back
I love it.
down here. Kind
And
of now it's
that's not in
kind
the
of
reference, right? So now you have to
no.
think about the physics of the fabric,
Yeah, so
what
of
that
course,
looks like.
if I were to finish this up as a complete illustration, I would undoubtedly need to get a reference for how that fabric would be moving. But because it's just a sketch.
You'd be looking at Superman cosplays and
Oh,
looking
for
for people.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cosplay can be very good reference, and I know there's a lot of like people will say like there is a line, right? If you're going to reference someone's photograph, how close it looks like them, how much you take from it, those are all things that you need to consider. But you can get a lot of inspiration from cosplay photos, I would
Oh,
say.
yeah, 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 yeah. And something that can help a lot with is texture. Sometimes you
Mhm.
don't need to have the details, the anatomy, all realistic. Sometimes just a little bit of texture goes a long way into making something give it just that little pinch of realism to just kind of push it over the edge.
Love it.
A little bit of texture. I'm gonna accentuate the contour of the body right here with the shadow on the cape. If there's an interesting contour, like how we were talking about those legs right here,
Yeah.
absolutely play with the silhouette, make it more graphic. Like, even if it's not realistic to have these legs totally in shadow right here, do it anyway.
Find a way to do it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or give it some kind of compositional element on the page that makes that shape pop out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Totally. Do what works. Like when you're talking about comics, do what works for the story first.
Mhm.
Story is always first. There we go. All right. How are we doing on time?
It is 5:49 for me. So
49.
just about 10 of.
Yeah, and 2:49 for me. So I guess we should probably start wrapping up the
I
conversation.
want to see if
Does
anybody's got
anybody?
any questions.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah,
Yeah.
any burning questions?
Anything about pose reference making, anything about gesture drawing, comic
Just
art.
about using references for comics. About
We're gonna have to wait for the chat to catch, everything because there's a lag, I'm sure.
oh yeah, true, true, true.
All right. So we'll give it a few minutes to sketch. You can doodle while they get to the. I can type too.
Oh, and here's a good example of how I'm kind of fudging things in order to suit the pose. This suit of armor is made of metal and does not warp and stretch like fabric does.
Mm.
Uh, Or at least it wouldn't if it existed in real life. It does in my comic because the pose is more important.
Because you can do what you want.
I can do what I want.
Any plan? Kyle wanted to know if there's any plans to bring video to the sketch website. I don't currently have any plans to bring video right now. My video is either TikTok, which is just sort of whenever I feel like doing it. I'm trying to keep it very casual. It was my pandemic hobby, and I'm trying to keep it real light and not like a big commitment. And then my patrons get 2 turnaround videos every month. So that's where you can find my video. And I do usually cross post the TikTok videos to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Cool. That is.
I do have future
around.
I have future goals and ideas for the Sketch app that would be larger and more involved than I'm currently able and willing to do, but those will be secret for a little while.
Ooh, so stay tuned.
One of the questions was poses that you've had the hardest position and draw. Like, what's the hardest poses to make? Is that the question?
Yeah, anything with foreshortening is gonna be hard. I'm struggling with these hands because my instinct wants to exaggerate like the curves of them, but really these fingers on this hand right here, these fingers are more straight, and I'm
Yeah, it's the angle of the
struggling with
blade,
that.
right?
Yeah, the angle of the blades and the angle of the fingers kind of wrapping around each other, wrapping around the blade. That is tough.
And I'm probably grabbing it with like a death grip because I'm literally falling.
Yeah. Anything like that is hard. Anything yeah, foreshortening for sure. Things that are more stretched out are you can easily fudge it more and it'll
Brain
still
goes,
look
what?
good. Yeah, cuz with something like I don't think I did the this underwater one. If you overlaid it, the pose is so weird, not in the right angle that the pose was, but because it's all stretched out like that, it doesn't really matter. It still looks breathable, believable, I mean.
Breathable. She can't breathe.
Yeah.
Freudian
Um,
slip.
so
Oh,
something with
somebody asked, Delphina 2K asked, how many pictures do you take in a session? That varies because if I go in for like a patron request, I might take only 2 or 3 just to, fill patron requests. The dancer shoot, it was over 1,300. So it really varies. Like, it depends on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So, like with the dancers, I had them for 2 hours, so I wanted to get as many pictures as I could possibly cram onto my camera. When we did the beach photo shoot with the wings, I think Blue took over 1,000 photos. So it
Wow.
just, it depends on what we're going for. I think the shoot with V, we did maybe 300 or 400 photos, but we were being like a little bit more selective. I wasn't doing a lot of rapid fire stuff. We were doing a lot of posed stuff. So that's like a different scenario. But yeah, anywhere from I go in my studio and take 1 photo for a patron to 1,000 or more, depending on what the situation is. I'm still editing that shoot. There's so many photos.
Definitely very
And they're
impressive.
so amazing. I can't wait to show you guys more of them.
I can't wait to see.
I feel like a little dragon sitting on like a pile of beautiful pose
A
references,
horde of stock photos.
hoarding them that no one can see them, and I trickle them out, you know, here and there. Editing takes forever, and I don't even do that much editing. I'm cropping and slapping a watermark on. All right, we are at 54 past the hour.
Right. Well, let's see. Do I have
Well, I'm
any
glad we got this in
Oh.
today because let me tell you, I might not be on the internet tomorrow.
Aw. Yeah, I'll probably I'm going to be at work
I've
tomorrow.
got ye old hurricane coming to visit,
Oh
so
God, yeah, good luck. Stay safe.
thank you. We
Yeah.
cleaned up the yard today.
The
I
rest of
think we're
you
ready.
who have normal schedules and don't have any work on Saturday, absolutely go check out. There's a whole other day of panels
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff
that's
tomorrow.
been set up at the Webcomic Library Con. Luma and Rennie and everybody else who is involved with the staff has done a fantastic job putting this all together. Very first Webcomic Library Con, hopefully of many.
Yeah, this will be fun to do again for sure.
For sure, for
Maybe
sure.
someday an in-person one. Ooh.
Ooh, yeah, that would be fun. Live models.
Oh,
I
that would be
like
so
that.
much fun. I would absolutely, if some con wants to invite me to come and be a guest, I would 100% live model for a panel.
That would
I
be so cool. I would
I
love
would
that.
totally do that. And I'd probably be terrible at it because I don't live model, but I would make it up.
That would be very fun.
You really got into this one, huh?
I sure did. I'm having fun exaggerating the size of the shoulder pads.
Of course. Of
As
course.
they should be.
That's the in comic gag, right?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Why are they so big?
Why are they so big? You'll
I
have to
can't
keep
wait to
reading to
find
find
out.
out. What is he compensating for? We'll see. All right. Well, thank you to everybody for attending this awesome panel, and thank you to you, Sarah, for being such an awesome co-host.
Yeah, this was really, really entertaining. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah, me too. What a great way to spend a Friday evening.
Exactly.
All right, any last questions before we go? Any last
Yeah, and if anybody has anything that they want to ask me, they can message me on Twitter's the main place to get in touch with me, and I also use Instagram and Facebook. And but Twitter is gonna be where you'll get the most me out of me.
Yeah. And by chance, if anybody else has been drawing along, doing some figure drawing,
Oh,
uh,
tag us, show us, yeah.
definitely tag us. Tag us. You can tag the webcomic library as well. Um, I'd love to see, even if it's completely unrelated.
Yep,
Show me your art, cool figure drawing stuff.
absolutely.
All right. And let me just add in some feet. I'm always avoiding the feet until the last minute. The bane of my existence. I got to practice them.
Everyone keeps asking me if I'm gonna do a foot book, and I'm like, guys, that's a whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there would be a lot of other places you could find that. Google.com.
But I do have a pack of 93 foot references that you can download for free in my DeviantArt gallery.
Hey,
So there you
cool.
go.
Awesome. All sorts of angles and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more that I can do, and maybe, it might be coming. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a poll on my Twitter right now to see what kind of merch people want next, so.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. Thanks again to the Webcomic Library for hosting a very cool con with some very cool panels. So be sure to stay tuned on Twitter to find out what is happening tomorrow.
Are we the last one tonight?
We're the last one tonight.
Ah, okay. I will have to, if I still have internet tomorrow and electricity, I'll have to peek in and see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching all the recordings. So if you can't make it tomorrow, like myself, fear not because it will be recorded and you can watch it after the con as well. So all
Awesome.
is well there. All right. Are we yeah, it is 2:59, so I think
All right.
it's time
That's a
to
wrap.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much everybody. This has been so fun.
Thanks for the chat, Mia.
Yeah. Thank you. You too. All right.